Well, I did something dumb today, everybody. I recorded an entire podcast with my mixer unplugged. 45 minutes of a day where I don't have 45 minutes right down the toilet. So instead, we're redoing it now as instead of a live mock, it's a mock recap show here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball presented by FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook, a proud partner of this show and of the Believe Network. This show, of course, is the program that will simplify fantasy basketball for you. My job is not to give you every single way to win. My job is to try to make it so that I do 60 hours a week and you only have to do 6 to be good at fantasy basketball. Find me on Twitter at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Take a moment to please like, rate, and subscribe. That is the biggest things you can do for me here on this program and for all of us here at the Old Man Squad. It's right there in front of you. Just hit that subscribe button. It's the easiest damn thing you can do. Please do it immediately. So here's where life went awry for me. This mock is done. The engine is counting down to, I think at the end of this timer, it's going to show you the entire draft board. But rather than, the live mock was fun. It was entertaining. I think I actually did a pretty good show and then realized that it was completely ruined. We are going to go through this a little bit of a different way. And instead, I want to kind of talk through, I gave myself pick 11 because in the previous mock we did, I had picked 9, and I felt like it went incredibly poorly. So first, let me just tell you what happened in my specific spots, and then I'll talk you through why I did what I did. The problem, of course, is that Yahoo's mock engine is extremely annoying, and it's going to keep scrolling on by itself without me actually doing it. So first pick, I pick 11. See, there it goes. It scrolled by itself. I didn't do that. And I took Trae Young at the end of the first round. And there's the overall pick, and it's not showing the board anymore, which, oh man, what a pain. It's going to be now harder for me to tell you exactly who went elsewhere. I might have to share. I think Yahoo sends out an automated email about this that's completely in the wrong color. So I'm going to have to do my best. So you guys are going to see my team, and I can no longer show you the mock board, which is really terrible. I'm very angry right now, but I'm going to try to hold it together. So this is what I did. I had Trae Young at pick 11, Domantas Sabonis at pick 14, LaMelo Ball, and don't worry, we'll go back and we'll talk about that one at pick 35, Pascal Siakam at pick 38, Jared Allen at pick 59, Kobe White at pick 62. I'm realizing I can also move my face around here, and it won't change the way this screen presents all that much. John Collins at pick 83, Asar Tops at pick 86, Zach Edey at pick 107, Bobby Portis at pick 110, Drew Holiday at pick 131, Cam Whitmore at pick 134, and Scottie Pippen Jr. at pick 155. Let's go back up to the top here and just kind of walk through why I did what I did. Now, I can't show you the rest of this, not easily at least, without basically I could show you my Yahoo email backdrop, and maybe that's the way to go. You know what? Screw it. This is going to be really dumb looking, but we're going to do it. I don't think this has any personal information on it. Great. Okay, we can do this. So this is the email that came in from Yahoo after the mock was finished. This is the stupidest show I've ever done, but you guys are a part of it now, so welcome. And you can see who went off the board before my Trae Young pick. James Harden went at 10, so my decision was between Trae and Devin Booker. It was really the only two players that I was considering at pick 11. Harden would have been the other one that I would have thought about there. If this was a 9-cat roto league, I 100% would have gone Devin Booker, because then you're not jammed into a particular team build. He's just a better 9-category player than Trae Young, unless we get the magical, Trae shoots 45%, 46% this year. I don't think we can expect that. If it happens, magic. But Booker is looking at a season where he's likely to score in the high 20s. He might even get up near 30. 2.5 to 3 3-pointers, 4 boards, probably 8 assists a game because he's going to be the main point guard there now. A steal, maybe. He's not a great steals guy. Solid both percentages from a guard. He's a really easy roto pick at that spot over Trae Young. But it's a head-to-head mock, so I went Trae. And that, which again, it's sort of against what I typically like to do, led us to round 2, where I was debating between, because Booker came off right after me, Maxey and Domantas Sabonis were the only 2 players that I was considering at that spot. I guess Steph Curry, you could have also put on the list of players I would have thought about. But again, we're looking at a team build thing now. And so Maxey was probably my first choice because he leans into the guard build and also covers up a little bit of what Trae is not as great at, which is Maxey got a lot of steals out of a guard spot. 1.8 steals per game last year. Also scored a lot of points, which, believe it or not, Trae Young actually didn't really do last season. But Maxey came off the board at 13, so I went Domantas Sabonis, and I went with the sort of, I'm going to say the mismatched build, but I went small, big. But here's something I want you guys to think about when you get to a player like Domantas Sabonis and you're thinking about pairing them with a small in the first round. What kind of a team are you actually creating there? You might think about Sabonis and say, oh, he's a big man. I'm in a guard build. He doesn't make any sense. But you'd be wrong, because in a guard build, like a Trae Young team, if you start with Trae, you are likely not good enough at 5 categories. Trae Young gives you an extraordinary start in assists and free throw percent. You're off to a gangbuster start in those. And you got a pretty good start in points and threes. Threes, I think I would even argue maybe even a little bit more than points out of the sort of early round guys. But you don't have 5 categories that you're better than the other teams at yet in a Trae Young start. And you might double down in a guard build, but you still probably don't have 5 categories that you're better than the other teams at. Now, if you went Tyrese Maxey, you are suddenly probably, let's say it's not a guarantee, better than teams now in points, threes, and steals. So you add those onto assists and free throw percent, and you've got 5. But Maxey was off the board. So Sabonis, you're like, well, he's a big man. What does that do for me? Well, no, he's not that great at scoring. So you sort of suffer there, and not good at 3-pointers. So you're going to have to deal with that at some point. But now, suddenly you have a team that, despite the guard start, is competitive in rebounds, because Sabonis was the best in basketball at that category last year. You're very good at assists because you just got a center that got 6 assists a game last season. Nobody's touching you in that, and you didn't even need to get a second guard to do it. Steals, still a little bit problematic, but that's, Sabonis is better there than he is at blocks, at least. He's at 0.7 out of the center spot. Field goal percent no longer has to be a punt. Free throw is no longer a massive advantage, but you've started a team now that has a guard, that has a center with some guard inclinations. And I want you guys to think about that from sort of the punt standpoint. And we'll get Adam Stock on the show before the season starts. I just need a nanny so that I can do shows not like first thing in the morning. This is the only time I have right now. We'll get Adam Stock on the show to talk a little bit more about this type of thing. But a common mistake that players make when they're punting is they think if they take one guard, they just have to take like 6 guards in a row. That you need to get all the guys that just do the 4 categories that you're focused on right out of the chute. But instead, you should be looking at out of position stuff, meaning who are the guys that fit my build that where I can't get the easy categories later. Let me try to illustrate that a little bit more. If you take Trae Young in the first round and you now feel like you must go guard build, so probably punt field goal percent or blocks or turnovers or some combination of those things, there will be guys at the end of the draft that are good at those, are good at the guard things and bad at your triple punt or whatever it turns out to be. Those guys are not the ones that are going to be hard to find. You can get Dennis Schroeder at the end of a draft. He'll be out there. And he's not the only one. You can get Kevin Porter Jr. You can get, I'll scroll down in a minute and you'll see it on the board here. You can get the guards that suck at 3 or 4 things towards the end of your draft. You don't have to get all your guard stats right out of the chute. What's harder to find after the first 4 or 5 rounds are bigs and power forwards, so bigs and bigs-ish, that fit your specific team build, that fill in some of the stuff you want to make sure your team is very, very, very good at, but also shore up 1 or 2 categories that you still need to be competitive at so that you're not losing 5-4 every week. And heaven forbid, your first rounder goes down. Now you're losing 8-1 every week. You can't be terrible at everything besides the stuff that your first round pick is good at. You just can't. It leaves your team way too vulnerable. There's so many. Yeah, you might squeak through winning 5-4 every week if your team mostly stays healthy. But if you have run into any sort of health patch, instead of winning 5-4, you're losing 7-2. So Domantas Sabonis actually makes a lot of sense. He's not horrible at free throw shooting. He's not good there, but he doesn't completely ruin what Trae Young provides. Yeah, it'd be nice to get somebody who scores a little bit more in this round. But now you get a center who assists, who fixes 2 of Trae Young's big issues in rebounds and field goal percent. And instead, you've got a guard build, but you don't have to punt all 4 big man categories. Rebounds, blocks, field goal percent, and lower turnovers is typically a big man build. You can punt 2 of those 4. That is why out of position stuff is really helpful. And it's why those guys go off the board early, because it's about fit. So the beginning of this draft went fine as far as all that is concerned. As I continue to scroll down on this board here, as you look at an email I got, what the worst, absolutely the worst visuals on a podcast of all time. And here I am asking you guys to subscribe to the channel. Oh, and before I get to round 3, something cool happened over the last 24 hours. And your boy Dano is now partnering with Fantrax. And it's so silly that I'm looking at my Hotmail email of a Yahoo mock draft result, but it couldn't be more fitting because of how frustrated I am with the way that the Yahoo mock deals with things at the end of it. By the way, this was a really good ad read in the middle of a live mock because I was watching things get all screwy and I'd be like, well, this wouldn't have happened if I was over at Fantrax. There's a link in the show description that I need you guys to check out. It's fantrax.com/oldmansquad, and it'll just take you to a free sign-up window. So all I'm asking from you guys right now is, if you enjoy the stuff I've done on this show, just make a free account over there and check it out. Because, look, I'm going to be completely transparent with you guys. I think the Fantrax user interface could use a little bit of work. But no one on planet Earth has better tools for running a fantasy basketball league than Fantrax. So this message really goes out to those of you who are commissioners more than anything else, but frankly to everyone, because if you want to play in a league that has the rules that you like and your buddy who's commissioning your league is tired of playing at ESPN and Yahoo where your options are extremely limited, Fantrax is the answer. So go to fantrax.com/oldmansquad. Again, the link is right there in the show description. Sign up for a free account because it costs you nothing. They will be like, oh, cool, Dan is doing his part to send people here. And I promise you guys, you will never be more impressed than when you look at Fantrax commissioner tools. Basketball, baseball, football, whatever. They've got them all over there. Check it out. I'm going to be running my 9-cat industry mock draft very soon. I'm going to be doing that at Fantrax because I need to be able to set up the slow draft the way I want it. I need to be able to roll back picks the way I want it. I need to be able to tweak everything the way I want it. Leagues are just better when you run them with the Fantrax commissioner tools. So my draft went off the rails briefly here in round 3 when I drafted LaMelo Ball. I was just talking. I think this was actually when I was doing the Fantrax read in the original show, and I forgot that my turn came up. And it came back around, and I had nobody in my queue, and I was looking around, and I was like, well, I've got Trae Young, I've got Domantas Sabonis. and every single guy that I wanted in the third round is gone. I didn't feel like I was ready to reach down to the fourth round, even though I obviously should have. And so I ended up with LaMelo Ball. And all the guys in the third round that I wanted were gone. So Donovan Mitchell was gone. Adebayo was gone. Hero was gone. De'Aaron Fox was gone. Jamal Murray was gone. Jalen Brunson, who I wasn't even really targeting, but he was gone. Josh Giddey at the end of the third, he was gone. Everybody was gone. So my choices really were look at the guys I like early in the fourth round, which is Derek White is a guy I like early in the fourth. I like JJJ somewhat early in the fourth round. Or do I take the big idiotic swing with LaMelo Ball, hope he plays 68 to 72 games this year? Because if that's the case, he was actually a really good fit for this particular team, because we know enough about LaMelo to know that he and Trae Young sort of piggyback on each other surprisingly well when LaMelo is healthy. It's a big if, but you've got a terrible turnovers team. Terrible, absolutely awful. But LaMelo provides points, threes, assists, steals, rebounds actually relatively well from a guard spot, good free throw number, terrible field goal percent. But listen, I wasn't supposed to be terrible at field goal percent because I just took Domantas Sabonis. I should be looking at someone in this range who, was bad at the things that both Trae Young and Sabonis are bad at, which was basically blocks. Or I could have gone punt points at this point. So LaMelo made absolutely no sense at all. Derek White is the guy that I'm going with here almost all of the time. JJJ is the guy I go with here if it didn't look like I was about to punt blocks. So my choices were slim. Or, I guess I could have gone Pascal Siakam, who I ended up getting auto-drafted in the fourth round. Siakam is another choice there. He would have shored up points a little bit. Siakam's going to be asked to do a lot. I'm a little worried about Indiana kind of pulling the plug on guys, but he's a big man who gets assists, who scores, has center eligibility. Like, he made a lot of sense for this particular team build. I ended up getting him by accident. But more than anything, what I've learned here is that the end of the third round sucks. Like, really sucks. Trey Murphy the third, I don't like him this early. I don't like Franz this early. I don't like Kawhi this early. I don't like Zion here. I don't even like some of the guys that went before. I don't like Ja this early. I don't like Cooper Flagg this early. I love Austin Reeves, but I don't like him at the end of the third round. I don't want Markin in there. I don't want Daniels there. I don't want Desmond Bane there. There's nobody I want at the end of the third round. This is, to me, the absolute ugly spot of your draft. And so I think you kind of just have to take Derek White and kick the can on what sort of team build you're doing. All right, I'll take Derek White, who's going to be probably decent at everything. It's not the end of the world. It's going to be a good pick. Doesn't fit. He's not a fit in any build, but he's also not a not fit in any build. But then what happens when it comes right back to you in the early fourth round? You already took Derek White. What do you do next? JJJ, probably? I think I'm going to end up, if in all the leagues that I'm in, and I'll end up in probably, 8 to 12 leagues when all is said and done. I'm guessing I'm going to end up with a ton of Derek White and JJJ, because unless I get really lucky and I get a whole bunch of top 5 picks in randomized draft orders, if I get any picks that are like 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th, those teams are probably all going to have a Derek White, Jaren Jackson combo on them. Almost all of them. Now, if somebody scoops one of those guys, my hope would be that it leaves one of the guys I wanted from the third that sort of hangs around a little bit longer, like maybe a Jamal Murray or a De'Aaron Fox or a Bam Adebayo. But if none of those guys make it to me, which seems very unlikely, it feels like I'll get one of those two at the end of the third. But if they're both gone, let's say I take one of them, but the other one is not there in the beginning of the fourth, I'm probably scooping down and going Austin Reeves really early, because he's another guy that's good across the board. And you guys know, for me, I'd rather go with someone who's just going to be good than someone who's going to be good in a particular build, because a lot of stuff can go wrong that way. So Reeves would probably be the next name I would look at. Desmond Bane, Jimmy Butler are probably the next couple, but hopefully you won't have to go quite that far down the board. But end of third, early fourth is a really, really tough place to draft right now. All right, let's get to the end of round 5, and that's where Jared Allen came into the mix. Again, this is another kind of tough spot. End of round 5. Now, it's not always going to be a mess. Like, there's a chance that one of the guys that got drafted a little earlier makes it down to me, but I think you have to be ready for your picks not to get to you at this spot. So Jalen Duren was gone. Denny Avdia was gone. Zach LaVine was gone. Miles Turner was gone. I feel fortunate that Jared Allen was still there because I feel like, Darius Garland went right before me, and he's going to come into the season hurt. I feel lucky that the risk guys got taken instead of the safe guys. Like Joel Embiid went in the 5th round. I can't do it. Kristaps Porzingis went in the 5th round. Yeah, I mean, he makes sense there, but I'd rather go Porzingis in a games cap format. And then Garland, all these guys that, Porzingis at least is healthy coming into the year, but Garland and Embiid are not. And that allowed Jared Allen to fall to me. I didn't think any of the guys I was looking at were going to get to me. And then I was going to be debating between like Kobe White, DeAndre Ayton, DeMar DeRozan, Cam Johnson, and OG Anunoby around pick 60, which is a solid like 15 slots earlier than I wanted to take any of those guys. But you're not going to have a choice at this spot. Now, the good news is that, it's pretty easy for players to jump ranks once you get down near 60. I think there's a good shot that Anunoby is inside the top 60. I think there's a good shot that Ayton is inside the top 60, but both of those guys come with a bit of injury risk. I think there's a good shot that Kobe White is inside the top 75, which makes him a relatively safe play here. I don't want guys on horribly tanking teams, which I'm certain Brooklyn is, and I'm fairly certain that Utah is again, although, who knows? They've tanked for a while now. But they just unloaded all of their veterans. This feels like the culmination of the tank is this year in Utah. One more full tank season, and then they can start to compete. Cam Johnson is almost definitely going to be inside the top 80, and DeMar is probably going to be inside the top 75. So you have a lot of like safe 75ers. But I ended up going Kobe White because I feel like of all of those guys, he and probably OG are the guys that could maybe jump up the board a little bit and are not terribly fearful on the injury side. OG has a bit of it. Kobe, not as much. But to me, this end of 5, beginning of 6, much like end 3, beginning 4, this is a tough spot. I don't want to have a pick near the end, middle or end of the first round because it sort of creates this trickle down where the tough picks are like each of the first 5, 6 rounds, you're in a little bit of a tough spot. Beginning of the second round is the only spot where you have a nice advantage with that late pick because the middle of the second round stinks, and hopefully you can get a guy before it hits that pocket. First 5 picks of the second round are not bad if you push Steph and KD up into that zone, and then it gets a little wonky. And then early third is okay again, I guess, unless you wanted to, take those guys late second. But, man, I thought these spots were tough. I feel good about Jared Allen, Kobe White pairing here, but I don't feel great about it because it's pretty safe. End of round 7, beginning of round 8. This is another spot where, you have some decisions on your hand, but you don't have to worry as much about it. So, this is pick 83 is what I had. And, the fun names I was thinking about were off the board, which is weird to call Freddie VanVleet a fun name, but I actually think he's kind of fun in the 80s and 90s because he could be a top 50 play again. Mark Williams, Peyton Pritchard are also kind of fun names that you could look at in the 80s, but they were also already gone. So I went safe again. John Collins, this is like if I had taken Austin Reeves earlier or Derek White earlier, he would have been in that same mold of guys that are just good at a lot of stuff. And they don't hurt your fantasy team. And maybe at this juncture, they don't help as much. But for head-to-head builds, like just keep taking guys that are solid. Take solid guys when they're available to you. And don't worry so much about what your first round pick was good at. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, man, if I had taken Devin Booker, I think this team would have been good at a lot of categories. But, I thought about Brandon Ingram here because he was like probably a better fit for the team build, but I didn't ultimately go that way. Now in round 8, this is where I decided to take a swing because I didn't think there were any really solid and safe guys left. I think John Collins was the last of those. Mikal Bridges is a safe guy, but I wouldn't classify him as super solid. So now you're into upside swings. And so I looked at the board, and this is pick 86. And I didn't have another pick until near the end of round 9, which I think was at pick 106 or something like that. And I was like, all right, I like a lot of players going between 100 and 110. Pre-ranked, sorry, ranked between 100 and 110. Who am I certain won't get back to me at pick 106? And I looked at the board and I was like, probably none of them. But the one that I know has no chance to get back to me is Asar Thompson. So I took the swing at 86 on Asar Thompson. Yes, is it earlier than I'd want to do it? Sure. Who else was I thinking about here? Donovan Clingan. So that one was definitely the other one on my potential list. Other names that I like in that range: Christian Brown, Tumani Kamara. But I went Asar because I think he's gonna be fun. Sometimes you just got to go fun. By the way, if you're looking at the Pistons season win total number, it's at 46.5, and money's coming in on the under. And I unfortunately am inclined to agree. I think that the build for the Pistons right now. So if you want to go over to FanDuel immediately and get some money down on that, I wouldn't be that upset with you. 46.5 is the FanDuel number for the Detroit Pistons. And they had this big breakout season and everything was beautiful. And I just don't know that they have the spacing for it right now. So that's the number for the Pistons. I do think Asar Thompson's going to have no choice but to play a bunch more, and he has infinite upside. And so for this one, I just wanted to do something fun. Could I have potentially missed out on someone who's a safer, like top 90 guy? Yes, absolutely. Trying to figure out why my chair wasn't sliding around. It's because it's rolling over at one of my t-shirts. Someone like a Christian Brown or a Kamara or a Clingan, who I'm excited about. Mikal Bridges. Yeah, I mean, they're probably safer picks here, but I don't know how many of those guys could be a top 50 dude. Asar Thompson can be a top 50 dude, and he can do it on defensive stats alone. Let's see. Did anybody make it back to me in round 9? One of the guys that I was interested in made it back to me in round 9. Everybody came off the board. Christian Brown came off at the end of the 8th round at 96. Tumani Kamara went at 99. Brandon Pajemski went just outside the top 100. But Zach Edey made it back to me at 106. And I feel fortunate. I was debating between Zach Edey and Naz Reid at this spot because he just kept getting passed over. And, Naz is a top 100 guy. He's fun. His big months last year came when Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert was out. And I don't think you want to draft a guy where you're like, this guy is okay, but he's great when someone's out, because you need something else to happen. He's not a one-away guy. Naz is still startable every day, but for him to be fun, he's one away. And I don't think that Zach Edey has to be one away. They started giving him more playing time at the end of last year. I'm inclined to think that they'll at least try it to start this season. And so Zach Edey has a chance to be fun without somebody getting out of his way. And now you start to get into the names where it's like, So I went Bobby Portis at the beginning of the 10th round. I've been sort of duking on Bobby Portis for a lot of seasons. I actually think he's going to be pretty good this year. He was number 101 last season, 14 points, 8.5 rebounds, not many defensive stats, 47-84 were the splits. I just think you're looking at a guy who's going to play a tiny bit more and get a little bit more on offense because Dame is out. Well, gone, traded, bought out, and then signed elsewhere. Again, pedantic, I guess, a little bit. But there's just usage. And if, heaven forbid, Giannis gets traded, then Portis goes really nuts. But he just moves up a little bit in the usage pecking order. And the best example, looking to see what Portis, now some of it is sort of small sample size stuff, but Bobby was a top 30 player down the stretch last year. And if you look at his last, I remember he got suspended in there for some sort of performance-enhancing medicine, whatever. In any event, like, he was doing more, likely because there was no Dame. So 12 shots became 13 or 14, that kind of thing. So just give him a little bit more, give him an extra minute and a half on the court and an extra shot and a half per game, and he's no longer a top 100 guy. He's more like a top 80 guy. And if Giannis gets moved, then he's like a top 40 guy. So I think there's a little bit of built-in upside with Bobby Portis, or hopeful upside, I should say. But the built-in stuff is because Dame's gone. There isn't really an obvious number 2. Is it Kyle Kuzma? Other guys I considered at this juncture, Derek Lively, not great for this particular team build, but I think he's going to be okay. Santi Aldama, Herb Jones, who went about a round later. I'm sad they didn't make it to me. Aaron Nesmith also was on my list. TJ McConnell. Once you get past Nesmith for me, then you're into the next chunk of players. And TJ McConnell got taken, but Drew Holiday, Cam Whitmore were 2 guys that I have in that group. I ended up with both of those guys. Drew Holiday at the end of the 11th, Cam Whitmore beginning of the 12th. Also interesting players in this range. Nemias Keita, Jay Huff is semi-interesting. I feel like he and Isaiah Jackson are going to end up splitting minutes for Indy, but they're both guys that can sometimes do fantasy value in 23, 24 minutes a game. Sam Hauser, Cason Wallace are all guys I would consider. Adem Bona, depending on how long you think the Joel Embiid stuff lingers. Alex Caruso, Scottie Pippen Jr., and then what happened, and I ended up with Scottie Pippen at the end of the draft, and what happened here also is that Kyrie Irving was still on the board at the very end. If you have 3 IL slots or more, you should be thinking about Kyrie in the 12th or 13th round, and then a quick stash, and then pick somebody up. If you don't have 3 or more IL slots, don't stash somebody for half a year. You're going to get burned by it. So that wasn't as fun as doing it live, but you guys still generally got the idea. The main takeaways here from today's show, and please, by the way, do subscribe. I know this is the worst visuals on a podcast I've ever done, which is looking at my email, but it's terrible. Yeah. Terrible visuals. I can't get over how bad that part was. Whatever. And at least people listening after the fact didn't have to deal with that nonsense. The main takeaways are, number 1, use Fantrax whenever you can. Fantrax.com/oldmansquad. Link is in the show description. Use that, please, when you sign up for a free account over there. You do not have to put a penny in to help me out. End of the 3rd round, end of the 5th round are complicated spots. We got to really shore up our strategy on those areas. Don't overdo it on team build. Don't, triple, quadruple punt right out of the chute. You narrow your pathway, and your margin for error also gets extremely razor thin. Just take really good players. You can figure out your team build as you go. I've had multiple winning fantasy teams in head-to-head where I thought I was punting one thing, and ended up punting something else as the season went on. Last year, I thought I was punting rebounds, and I ended up with a very big, heavy team. Go figure. You just don't know until you get there. So don't shoehorn yourself into stuff so much. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. Other things we learned. This show's brought to you by FanDuel. We didn't learn that today. We already knew that. I don't know if I gave you guys my Twitter handle. It's at Dan Vespris. I'm going to post these results over there, and we can chat about them a little bit. But that was fun also. So this was Dan screwing up a show badly by forgetting to turn his microphone on, but then redoing it. And now 1 podcast or 2 podcasts became 1. I've completely ruined all my free time today. And hopefully you guys are appreciative of that. Please subscribe on the way out, however you're taking in the content. We'll do more analysis as we go. I'm going to try to get a second show to you guys later on today. I have a laundry list of things I want to get to. Shows, I mean. And we'll do those when we do those. Oh, Dano. Oh, Dano.